James from Coalition Nutrition. Today we're here at NutraBio with owner and founder Mark Glazier, and we're going to do a 5-question Q&A. The first question is, a lot of us have heard about amino spiking, and essentially that's when people are putting cheaper aminos in protein to count as protein content. But Mark, what other things have you seen in our industry that people are kind of cutting corners on?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of things going on in the industry right now that have been going on for the last 20 or more years. Some are absolutely illegal and companies do it anyway. Some are legal and are just total hype or a total scam, but the FDA hasn't ruled on it. And then there's things that are in the gray area. Protein spiking, in my opinion, is just plain out illegal. Somebody buys a protein powder, they look on the back of the supplement facts panel, they see 25 grams of protein per serving. They're expecting to get 25 grams of complete protein per serving. Yeah. Protein spiking means that you take that protein out of there. You're going to replace it with creatine, or replace it with taurine or glycine or BCAAs or something like that, that has a lot of nitrogen value, but has no actual real protein in it, no complete protein in it. Aminos are building blocks of protein, it's not the other way around. So when you spike up the nitrogen level in a product, the test results show us more protein in there when it's not. Creatine monohydrate, for example, tests out on a nitrogen level based on being a protein that's 270% higher than the protein itself.
It's a cheaper ingredient,
It's cheaper. It's half the price of a whey protein isolate. So you're getting half the cost, and it's producing almost 3 times as much nitrogen based on being a whey protein. So 5 grams of creatine in a serving will test out at about 13 grams of protein. So now your 25 gram serving of protein, now you think you're getting complete protein. It's like you get chicken, and you have a diet where you're measuring everything out. You're expecting complete protein, all the 13 essential amino acids that the body needs for a muscle to be built. Well, all of a sudden your 25 gram protein serving only has 12 grams of protein in it. The rest is creatine monohydrate, or it's going to be taurine or glycine. And companies just explain that as, hey, amino acids are protein, therefore it's all the same. No, they're not. If I sold you my creatine monohydrate bottle and I put on the back there 5 grams of protein per serving, I'd be laughed out of the industry. So how does magically 5 grams of creatine turn into protein once it gets dumped into a bucket? And it's not. So people, and so many companies are getting class action sued right now, and it's still going on.
It's well deserved.
Right? Yeah, it's well deserved, but we don't know if it's right or wrong, who's doing it, who's not, so we can't blame companies. But it's rampant out there. It's still being done now, even though there's 7 or 8 different lawsuits going out there. Companies are still doing it every day. And the worst part is, a lot of small brands have no clue that they're even doing it. This is the biggest scam in the industry. You have these protein companies that pop up, and they have really good intent. So they go to 2 or 3 contract manufacturers, and they're trying to get the best product at the lowest price. So the contract manufacturers are trying to find ways to get the product down, and that's where protein spiking came from. It wasn't the brilliance of one brand saying, how do we rip off the consumer? It's manufacturers saying, how do I get the bid from this guy? Let's tell this guy that this protein is great, plus it has creatine in it. Now they buy it from you instead of buying from him. Now the brand, I have people come to me literally on a weekly basis to try and get me to manufacture the products, and I look at the proteins and I say, dude, this is spiked. I can't make this for you. It's not what it's supposed to be. Or other scams. And consumers are getting, this has been going on about 8 or 9 years. And it's just a total ripoff. Consumers are getting nothing for it. I've seen products that are as low as 20% value in protein, and the rest is just fake nitrogen from other ingredients in there. So that's a huge scam out there. But the biggest one is the oldest one, and that's proprietary blends. Yeah. I mean, everybody knows about it, everybody talks about it, everybody says, yeah, I don't believe in proprietary blends, but it's still the biggest ripoff in the industry. And a proprietary blend, let's just explain it, because a lot of people, we think we all know what it is, but we're in the industry, so we talk about it all the time, but a lot of people still have no clue. The FDA says on a label, you have to list every single ingredient on the supplement facts panel. And you have to list the dosage of every single ingredient. So the customer, the consumer knows everything that they're getting. But they give you an out. If you want to not tell the consumer the dosage, you can put it in what the FDA calls a proprietary blend. Now that word or term is not something we came up with. Right. That has FDA regulatory definition in CFR 21, part 101-36. You can actually read it. It has a definition of proprietary blend. And the FDA says you don't have to call it proprietary blend, you can call it protein blend or come up with another name. But that's when you take a bunch, 2 or more ingredients, you put them into a group, you put a heading of it, proprietary blend, protein blend, amino blend, whatever you want, and now you put all those ingredients in parentheses behind the blend name, and the FDA says now you only have to list the total amount of the blend and not the amount of the individual ingredients. Now, for years, I mean, even now, we ran into an owner in a store the other day who owned a brand who swore that he used proprietary blends to protect his secret formula. Well, that's everyone. That's bullshit. And I get really passionate about this because when I started my product 20 years ago, it was filled with proprietary blends. Mm-hmm. And back in 1996, I was so naive that I got sold on these proprietary blends. So I created this really cool protein powder that I designed, and then I had all this other crap in it. Yeah. And after 2 or 3 years, I started to learn that these prop blends were nothing. They were just telling my consumers that there were ingredients in there. My customers were buying me because of that, but they weren't in there. There were micro doses of it in there. Yeah. And that's one of the biggest scams out there, is because companies will take ingredients, tout it in their marketing, tout it in their advertising on the front of their label. Customers buy it because these ingredients are, give a lot of benefit, but it's not in the dough. It's not in there.
We've even seen that one picture you put up on your social media where there was a company claiming to have a certain amount of protein in the product, yet the total label wasn't even that. It didn't even have that many grams.
Yeah, that's ridiculously absurd. They claimed 30 grams of protein per serving out of a 15-gram serving size.
Yeah.
That's just an impossibility to do. But it's we look at these as scams. The industry on the inside doesn't look at these as scams. These are common, everyday practices. Protein spiking wasn't this thing that somebody popped up with, a couple of years ago, and it's like, wow, can you imagine one guy's doing this? No, it's an everyday acceptable practice in the dietary supplement manufacturing industry. Doing proprietary blends is the standard in there. And again, it's not there to protect my brand. If I use one from somebody copying, that's bullshit, because I can take any product on the market, the ingredients are listed, send it in my lab, and 2-3 days later, I have that formula. The only way to protect your formula from me is a patent. Right. You can't hide it. I can test it. The reason you use a proprietary blend is the brand owner is hiding what he's putting in there from the consumer. Now, he's not hiding the ingredients because he's got to list them.
Right.
But if a dosage is 500 milligrams, there might only be 1 milligram in the product. So the consumer thinks they're getting the benefit from the ingredient, and there's nothing in there that gives any benefit. The FDA says you have to list it. If you say there's a gram, there better be a gram, or that product's going to be pulled off the market. Right. But if you don't say there's a gram, and you don't have to, then they don't care. They're not going to make the decision whether 1 milligram something is better than 500. So consumers go out there and they buy pre-workouts and all these products, and they get touted on all these ingredients. And in my opinion, it's 75% or greater of the products out there using proprietary blends are complete rip-offs to the consumer. So if anybody asks me the simple question, if it has a proprietary blend on the product, do not buy it.
Our question number 2 is another thing that Mark likes to talk about, and it's kind of borderline a scam in the industry. Can you talk a little bit about whey concentrate?
Sure. Another big hype or scam in the industry. Whey protein concentrate can be a good product, so we'll start there. There's whey protein isolate, whey protein concentrate. Mm-hmm. They both start as the same thing. It's a byproduct of cheese making. Starts out as a liquid whey, and it's getting rid of the liquid, getting rid of the fat, the lactose, all the sugar, all the garbage just gets filtered out. Okay. If you get a lot of it out, you end up with an isolate. An isolate, by definition, USDA definition, has to be a minimum of 90% protein value, complete protein value. So if you see an isolate in a product and it's labeled whey protein isolate, then you know at least 90% of that is pure protein on a dry basis. That's just lab definition. It's a little less what you put in the bottle. It's about 88, 89%. The problem with whey protein concentrate is the definition by the USDA is it's a protein coming from whey that has to be a minimum of 25% all the way up to 89.9. After that, it starts as an isolate. So you have this range, a 65% range in quality from 25% all the way up to 90%. Now, there's no commercial available WPC that's 89.9. They're all about 80. So if you take a really high-end whey concentrate that's 80% next to an isolate, well, they're fairly close, 10% difference. Not bad using the two of them together or separate. Yeah. The concentrate will have lactose in it, so it won't be good for a lactose-free person. A little more fat and a little more sugar. And that's what the general consumer thinks. However, when you look at the term whey protein concentrate on a label, it could be any one of a number of grades of whey protein concentrate. The lowest commercial is WPC 25. Well, that's not used as much, WPC 34. 34% protein. Right. You can't even buy it in the industry. It's sold out because it's mixed in with every single product out there. It's 34% protein. It's really designed for the baking industry because it's low in protein value, high in lactose, high in fat. and it doesn't dry out brownies and cookies and stuff like that. It's not made for our industry, but it's sold out to our industry like crazy.
We see that a lot in gainers, right? I mean, that's probably the biggest culprit of the low quality proteins is the gainers, and that's one of the reasons why they mess up people's stomachs so much.
Absolutely. And you asked about sweet whey. Sweet whey is even worse. It's only about 15%. If you ever see a product that says sweet whey on it, do not buy it. I mean, it's just total garbage. But here's a problem with these different grades. There's WPC 34, 45, 60, 75, and 80. And those are all commercially available that any of us can buy. But on the label, the only requirement is that you say whey protein concentrate. You don't have to say whey protein concentrate 80 or WPC 34, so the consumer never knows what's really in the product. Most products are a blend of whey concentrates. So they'll take WPC 34, a really garbage one. You can't fill your product with that because the consumer realizes, oh crap, I'm taking 80 grams of scoop to get 25 grams. They notice that's way off. So what the companies do is they take WPC 30, WPC 80, and they blend them together, and that's how they find their cost balance of a product. And that's why you see a lot of products, when you look at their protein ratio, are 44, 50, 55, 60, 65%, when they should be up in the 75, 85, 90%. Right. And it's just whey protein concentrate, whey protein isolate, mycel casein, another few high-end ones mixed in there. But that whey protein concentrate is rarely, if ever, 80% high-end concentrate. It's usually a 34% blended in.
Right.
And so when you see the word whey protein concentrate on the label, it's basically a proprietary blend on its own. It's one heading, and it could be 2, 3, or 4. There's companies that mix pro cream in there and other things that are considered a whey protein. The crap that when we have our isolate made that is siphoned and filtered out, that's all lactose, fat, and sugar, that crap is still over 25% protein. Yeah. And companies will buy that because it's considered whey protein concentrate and put it right back into the product. So the big scam here is that you look at what we talked about a moment ago, a proprietary blend, and now you mix in what I call WPC bait and switching, because everybody thinks it's a high-end concentrate, but we switch it out. I don't switch it out, the company switch it out, and you put these two together. So you have a proprietary blend that says whey protein concentrate first, whey protein isolate, mycel casein. Two really expensive high-end proteins. Whey isolate, fast absorbing, 90%, mycel casein, slow absorbing, very expensive. Right. But the first ingredient is whey protein concentrate. Since it's a prop blend, that ingredient, let's say it's 35 gram protein dosage, I've actually seen formulations that have 35 grams of protein, 34,900 milligrams of it is coming from whey concentrate. 50 milligrams comes from isolate, 50 milligrams comes from casein. And then of that concentrate, it's in itself a blend of 34% and 40 and 80%. So you have a consumer who looks at a protein powder and says, wow, great protein. It's got concentrate, it's got isolate, it's got mycel casein. I've heard about these two, fast, slow, it's really good. In essence, what they get is, I did this the other day, just coincidentally, I didn't know we're doing it, this is actually measured out. This is it. That's a 35 gram dose of a real product. That's the concentrate that's in there. Here is the amount of isolate, that's 50 milligrams. That's the amount of isolate that was in a serving of this product that's on the market in almost every store in the country, and that's the amount of mycel casein, 50 milligrams, 34,900 milligrams of concentrate. Half of this, WPC 34, half of this, WPC 80. So is this a legitimate product? Is this legal? Yes, because the FDA doesn't say that you have to tell me how much it's in there. Yeah. Is it ethical? I think it's completely unethical because mycel casein has properties that if I'm buying it, I want. I don't get any of that from 50 milligrams, nothing at all. I don't get anything from the isolate. So that's, you talk about the scams, you talk about the problems, but then when you start to take them and put them together, like you take whey protein concentrate bait and switching, you intertwine that with proprietary blends, and now you want to get me to go really off, I'll take protein spiking and intertwine it into those two, and you can see how you take a 2-pound bucket of protein and you can have it made for $3. You guys are paying $40 in the street for it. So the plastic and the label and the lid cost more than the product that's inside of it. Yeah. Do you get any problems from it? Yeah, you get stomach issues, but you don't get benefit. That's even worse because you're expecting to build muscle from working hard. Well, your products should work as hard as you do in the gym. And if you expect to get 25 or 30 or 35 grams of protein per serving, the company better damn well give it. So when you see these kind of labels, not mine, I don't do that, with protein spiking on there, with whey concentrate. Now there are brands in the last couple of years who are starting to list whey protein concentrate 80%. And I do it. I have a product called whey protein concentrate. It's an 80% protein. It's a good protein. It's an economical version of a higher end isolate, but it's still 80%.
Yeah.
And companies are starting to put that on there. So if you see a product that's whey protein concentrate 80%, it's a decent product. If it just says whey protein concentrate, why? Why don't they tell me what it is?
Right.
And there's your problem.
So question number 3 is, any ingredients from when you first started NutraBiotics to now, are there any of them that are kind of outdated? Has the technology changed? Has the research changed on some of these?
Yeah, I think consumers have to understand one thing about this industry is the research is very small. So if you're going to go out there and you're going to look at the research and everybody's going to tout the research, if you don't actually look at the research, you find that it's done somewhere in China on 15 rats, and people tout that like crazy. Silk amino acids is a big one like that. There was a study done on silk amino acids, which is it's not a combination of amino acids, it was actually a protein, a full protein, and they tested a bunch of lab rats, and they weighted them down and they made them swim, and they found that those lab rats, mice, actually performed much better when they were given these this protein. But nobody actually looked at the study. So silk amino acids became huge for a number of years. Yeah. But when you looked at the study, they gave the swimming rats a protein powder, and they gave the other rats that were not getting it nothing. Protein versus no protein. Well, guess what? Protein versus no protein, you expect anybody to do better training. Amino acids versus no amino acids, you expect them to do better training. So they didn't study silk amino acids against branched chains or silk aminos against something else. They tested against nothing at all. So there was a improvement, of course. But then the industry got that one stupid little study, quoted it all over, and you see all these silk amino acids pop up. None of them had silk amino acid in it. That was the actual protein, not a blend of individuals. It was a specific protein that was tested. Okay. Well, they took the 5 major amino acids that were in there, and then there were like 30 or 40 others in minor amounts, and they just blended them in a bottle and called it silk amino acids. So now the study didn't apply at all, because you have 5 different ingredients in a bottle. The study was done on something else, but tens of millions of dollars in silk amino acids were sold to the consumers until they realized branched chain amino acids were getting much better benefit, and the consumer realized it on their own without even thinking about it, that they were losing benefit. And you see this stuff pop up all the time. So if you go on the internet now and you put in like the top ingredients that are scams or whatever, all these studies are so hard to figure out, because they'll take this one little study and they'll say, well, glutamine doesn't work, or arginine doesn't work, or this doesn't work, and then you can find another study that says it does. And the reason that you don't see good studies is nobody's going to spend the money. In the pharmaceutical industry, if I'm going to put out a drug, I'm going to spend $100 million on studying that drug to prove to the consumer it works, because I'm going to sell it for $1 billion because I patent that drug. Well, you can't really patent arginine or a natural ingredient. A company can only get a use patent. You can say, well, the arginine helps in nitric oxide. But if you spent $20 million proving that, then anybody could sell it. Yeah. I cannot sell it for that purpose, but anybody else can have a generic right there. So nobody puts a lot of money. So you know, if you're ever going to listen to a study, just go to medwatch.com or one of these companies and actually read the study. Yeah. So when somebody quotes, this is good for this or this is good for that, everything's available on the internet. Just go Google that study and read it. And if you see that there's nothing behind the study, then just disregard it. And that's the problem. People say glutamine is horrible. Arginine, arginine was huge for nitric oxide. Well, arginine does not work so great in nitric oxide, but other types of arginine do, like arginine alpha-ketoglutarate, which is now not, liked in the industry, but I'm a big believer in that, and we've done a lot of studies on arginine alpha-ketoglutarate for nitric oxide. So unfortunately, you have these ingredients that go up and down based on some studies, and it's all hype, because everybody takes those studies, hypes it up, and now this great ingredient, it's out of popularity now. Yeah. Now this crappy ingredient is really popular. So it's a big, confusing part of the industry that the consumer, unfortunately, will never be able to get a good grasp on. You got to find a brand that you kind of trust, and hope that they're not just putting an ingredient out, a new creatine to replace the old creatine just because nobody else has it out now, and it might or might not be better than the other one. It's got to be something that works and something that's studied as best as you can, and you get it out not only in studies in the lab if you can, but get it out to athletes and see if it works there too. So.
We already talked a little bit about protein scamming. Are there any other products that people should kind of be on the lookout for as far as cutting corners goes?
Yeah, individual products, I'd probably look more at categories of products. Pre-workouts are probably a big one, I think, because the consumer measures the benefit of a pre-workout by the immediate feeling. So that's going to be the stimulant that's in there. Now, I'm not against stimulants. I put a lot of stimulants in my pre-workouts.
Yeah.
You know, if you can train harder and get a CNS stimulant while you're training and it gets you to work harder, that's great. But people in general measure the effect of the overall pre-workout by that.
Right.
But if it's a good pre-workout, it's got a lot of other ingredients in there that create an anabolic effect in the body, that give you more energy, that let you train longer, that does all different types of things.
Right.
And not most, a lot of the pre-workouts in the market are these concentrated blends, and people are looking to take little teeny scoops of something. And people, companies even put down products that have large dosages of ingredients, and rightfully so, because many years ago, if you were taking a big scoop of a pre-workout, it was probably filled with sugar and dextrose and all that.
Right.
So everybody started to pull that out because consumers started to realize it, so the scoop size got smaller and smaller. But now there's a whole new type of pre-workout on the market that's just 20, 25 grams of all active ingredients that are doing the job to get your workout better, harder, and start the recovery process.
Right.
So consumers have to look at pre-workouts and not just at the price and the servings, but have to look at what's in it. If it's all stimulant and then you have those proprietary blends of these other 20 ingredients in there, what are you getting from it? If it's beta-alanine, you're looking for a minimum of 800 milligrams, and you have to take 4 of those a day then. So you want 1,600 up to 3,200 milligrams. If it's citrulline malate, you're looking for 6 grams stuff. So you don't just want to see the prop blends and pre-workouts. You want to look at and say, is everything in here in a therapeutic dosage? And unfortunately, the industry plays a lot of games in pre-workouts, just the same as in proteins, by underdosing everything, putting more and more ingredients in there to make the label look better. The consumer tries it, they spend a lot of money for it. The caffeine, DMAA, whatever they're putting in there, stims them all out. They train hard and say, this is a great product.
Yeah.
Where actually you can take that same product, pull the stems out, put it in a capsule, sell for $10 because that's all it costs, and the rest of it doesn't have to be in there because it's not giving the gain unless it's in a therapeutic dosage. So you want to look at a product like that and say, no prop blends, I want to see every dose, and I want to make sure every ingredient in there is in a full therapeutic dosage. So pre-workout, I'm talking a lot about the bad stuff in the industry, but there's something really good. We're kind of in a renaissance right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been around 20 years, so I've seen all of this. 15 years ago is when we stopped all proprietary blends, and we haven't had a single proprietary blend in a product since. But 5 years ago, if you looked at my pre-workout, I was probably one of 3 or 4 pre-workouts that were non-proprietary blends. Now there's 40 or 50. Every day I see another one.
Yeah.
Intra-blasts or intra-workouts, like you just mentioned, most of them are non-prop blends because they've come out in the last few years when consumers are noticing that, so they're better and better.
Right.
Protein, we've been talking a lot about, that's way behind. There's nobody out there. Everybody's using prop blends of protein. Only 1 or 2 or 3 companies that are starting to get out of that. So with all this negative we're talking, the consumer should feel good about it because it is starting to change. You can choose between a dozen great pre-workouts in the marketplace that are all listed and have really good blends.
Yeah.
And it's going to get better. People think that this industry is totally unregulated because the media says that, the politicians say that every time somebody gets caught, the media jumps out and says it's the Wild West, these guys can do whatever they want. That's bullshit. This industry, as far as manufacturing a product, is completely regulated. FDA has rules that were put into effect in 2008. Unfortunately, not many companies follow these rules, and the FDA at this point doesn't have the money to go and check on all the companies. But CFR 21 Part 111 are manufacturing guidelines for GMP and packaging guidelines and labeling guidelines for any company that manufactures a dietary supplement, packages it, labels it, or even stores it. And those regulations are extremely strict. They force you to test every single ingredient. So there's no way you can have an ingredient in your facility unless you've tested it and proven that it's what it's supposed to be.
Right.
It forces you to test every finished product. Everybody's out there touting, yeah, we test the products. Well, yeah, you have to. The FDA requires every single dietary supplement to be tested for every ingredient label claim. That is a law, that is a requirement. And there's another 100 regulations in between. And you take a look right here. These are I don't know if the camera can see over there. Those are red binders, and they're only partially there, are all of the SOPs, the standard operating procedures that we have to follow according to regulation to create a product. That's why we manufacture everything ourselves, because we want to control from beginning to end what we're getting out there.
And you're one of the few people that do that. I mean, almost everybody contracts their stuff out to other manufacturers, right?
Yeah. When I started many years ago, I did the same thing. It's the easy way in.
Right.
And in those first few years when I mean, you can look at, here's my muscle matrix.
The originals?
Yeah, this is my original muscle matrix. We talked about this protein earlier.
Yeah.
It's half micellar casein, half whey protein isolate,
Right.
nothing else in there. Well, this is my original muscle matrix made by a contract manufacturer. There's my ingredients list. we could spend the next 10 minutes trying to read this. There's like 60 different green vegetables and fruits in there. Maybe this might have been the first greens protein on the marketplace 20 years ago, but there's 1 milligram total. There's things in here I still don't, 20 years later, don't know what's in the product. And in those first early years, I started to realize, oh, wow, all this shit's going on. My products aren't good.
Right.
You know, I'm not giving my customers, and most of the customers back then when I started were my old karate students. I was selling everything to my karate students and the instructors and all the fighters out there, so I had a lot of pride in what I was doing. So one day, back in 2001, we just stopped. We took about $250,000 worth of product and we threw it all in dumpsters. We had to sue companies to find out what our ingredients were, because we saw prop blends. I said, well, how much acetyl-L-carnitine is in there? They wouldn't tell me. We had to sue, and then we found out there's 3 milligrams, and it should have been 500 milligrams. So we threw out about $250,000 worth of products. That's when we changed our name from NutraBiotics to NutraBio, and we made that, you know, those promises to our customer: no more proprietary blends, no fillers, no excipients in any product. We would manufacture our products ourselves so that we can control the quality, so this kind of thing cannot happen to me. That's why I got into manufacturing my own product, is because I want to choose every single ingredient. If you bought my creatine monohydrate, I've only used 2 manufacturers of creatine monohydrate in 20 years. I don't buy a pallet of this and this crap here to save 3 cents. It's got to be the highest possible quality. My dairy proteins are made for me to my exact specifications. I haven't changed my dairy manufacturers in 10 years, where other companies will buy a truckload here, a pallet here, whatever's cheaper, 10 cents cheaper, 20 cents cheaper, but then you don't have consistency in product. And if somebody's making my product, I can't control where my ingredients are coming from. I can't control, you know, from choosing ingredient, all the processes to finished product. I want to know everything that's going on in there, and I want to know that my final product is exactly what I'm telling my customer it is. That's why we're so into no prop blends, full label disclosure, is because, you know, it took me years to learn all this stuff.
Right. All right. So the last question we have for you is, you know, we've been retailing your products for about 1.5 years now. I think we're actually one of your first retailers. You know, we've been behind the brand since day one, and you guys have done some really exciting things over that 1.5 years that we've been working with you.
Thank you.
What's next?
Well, thanks for being one of our first. I mean, we've sold direct to consumer for 18 out of our 20 years, and when we went to stores, you probably were one of the first out there. For you actually to sell our product was probably pretty hard, because we were messing things up because we didn't understand how stores worked. You know, that wasn't our expertise. Our expertise was making a product. So you prevailed through that whole thing, and I thank you for that. But I guess we're going to continue to do what we've always done, and that's just work on creating products that are better than they were before. You know, if you look at any of my products 20 years ago and now, they're not the same product. They have improved every single time we've produced again, and somehow we just put our whey protein isolate out. And we've had a whey protein isolate out for 20 years now. It's a simple product, whey protein isolate and a flavor system. Yeah. But every year or so, we try and find ways to improve it. So this time we only wanted to make a chocolate better tasting for consumer. But in the interim, we said we have to make it better. So we took out artificial flavor from it and left it natural, more expensive, obviously, so it costs more to us. And then we said, oh, how can we get the protein value up? Because in a chocolate, protein is always lower than the other flavors because you're adding cocoa. And we found a new technology where we could spray dry our flavor right onto the cocoa, use less of it. So the product tastes much better now, but it's actually almost 2% higher in protein value if you divide the protein into it. And that's what we're always doing. If you look at thermal fuel, we're in our 9th main revision. So this kind of goes to the previous question. When we go to reformulate that, we look at every study that's available. Then we call the scientists. We do everything we can, and we see if there's any new research, any new ingredient, any new dosages, anything that conflicts, and we're constantly making changes so that product is getting better and better. So thermal fuel is in its 19th year. You know, maybe I should have renamed it a few times to get more hype, but I don't do that. I just show the consumer how it's getting better. So for us, it's keeping all the hype out, making a product as honest as we can, full label disclosure, and our products are not perfect, they never will be, but what we feel here is make them perfect, so the pursuit of perfection is what we're after, and that drives us to every time we produce to make the manufacturing better, to make the performance of the product better, so that pursuit of perfection is really our goal here. And we might not ever get to it, but it drives us to make every product better and better and better. So our users and our followers should see, you know, everything improve next year, 2 years, 3 years. They might see our most popular product and 2 ingredients disappear because we found that the studies changed and it wasn't what it was supposed to be. And that's what we're doing. adapting to what works. Everything that we do is about performance first. So when we make a product, it has to work for the consumer. It doesn't matter how it tastes good if it doesn't work. So that's first. Performance, does it work? Then quality. Quality is key, but it's still not as important as performance, because if I give you a perfect product, I'm giving you a perfect piece of shit that doesn't work. It doesn't matter how well it's made. So the formula's got to be amazing, and it has to give benefit to the consumer. Then it has to be manufactured to the highest GMP standards or above. So the consumer's getting something safe, getting something what they're promised. And then our third thing is worrying about flavor. I mean, flavor is important to the consumer, but to us it's third on the list, because I'm not going to take something like intra, pre, or post, our recovery product that has 25 grams of disgustingly tasting ingredients in it. I'm not going to pull it out to make it taste better, because then the consumer loses performance. So I start with my formula first, that everybody here in the formulation department knows. When we formulate a product, nobody knows the cost. We don't have a cost on it. Nobody gets to see it. Nobody gets to taste it. We make the product, then we figure out how to make it taste good. So it's performance, quality manufacturing, and then taste after that. And that's our pursuit, and that's what we do every year after year. So you should expect to see what you've seen in the last year, the last year and a half, pre-intra. All these have improved in many different ways. They've all been reformulated 2 or 3 times since you've been with us, and you should continue to see that. We're not the brand where the product on the shelf now is going to be the same a year from now, or when you started with us a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for your time today. We appreciate having you.
Hey, thank you for coming. Yeah. Thank you for getting the word out on quality. And you have a lot of consumers that follow you out there, and you're getting the message that everybody should be getting, is learning what you're putting in your body. I mean, all these things that we're putting in here, they're chemicals. Food is a chemical. Yeah. You're not painting your bathroom walls here, and you're not buying paint. You're actually putting stuff in your body, and you want to know what that is. You want to know that it's giving you higher performance. And if somebody can go to a store like yours and have somebody who actually gives a damn, actually cares, and is going to make a recommendation, not just based on the margin that they're getting, but based on what that product is going to do for the consumer. Because a good store owner like you knows that if it works, they're going to come back to you. Yeah. And that's everything. That's how stores thrive. And you obviously work out, you train, we've talked a lot, you love what you're doing, that's your passion, and you're taking that passion and you're giving it to your customers, and that's what we're doing to you. So it's a great team that we're out together, man. Absolutely.